At 55, Phil Mickelson just became a living paradox. He has more runner-up finishes at the US Open than any golfer who has ever lived. 6 of them, a record built across 3 decades of near misses that only made his legend bigger. And right now, at 55 years old, Phil Mickelson has nowhere to play a major championship. Not suspended, not banned, just out of doors. This isn't a story about one bad year. It's 3 separate collapses that landed on top of each other in the space of 12 months. And once you see how they connect, the word everything stops sounding like an exaggeration. Early 2026. Mickelson pulls out of the Masters, citing a family matter. Nobody questions it. The Masters invite is his for life, so there's no urgency, no scandal, just an empty seat where a 2-time champion should be. Then the PGA Championship. Same explanation, same absence. Then the US Open at Shinnecock, the one tournament where his story actually lives, where 6 runner-ups should have meant something. This time there was no lifetime exemption to fall back on. He needed to qualify. He didn't try. 3 majors, 3 no-shows, in 4 months. On its own, that's just a veteran player easing into retirement. But the timing lines up with something much bigger happening behind the scenes. Something nobody was talking about publicly yet. The Farms Golf Club, tucked into Rancho Santa Fe near his hometown, wasn't just a course to Mickelson, it was decades of muscle memory. The one place he didn't have to be Phil Mickelson PGA Tour defector. He could just be a member. That ended in spring 2026 over a single allegation. According to a Golf Digest investigation, a female employee at the club said Mickelson made unwanted physical contact with her before a round. She reported it. The club investigated. He was told to leave mid-round and his membership was terminated. His camp called it a misunderstanding. The club called its response decisive. Both sides agree on the outcome, he's out, and disagree on everything else. This wasn't just a controversy, it was the quiet removal of the one part of his life that had nothing to do with tours, sponsors, or public opinion. And it was happening at the exact moment the foundation under his entire career was starting to buckle. In 2022, Mickelson made the bet that changed everything. He joined LIV Golf and didn't dress it up. He said outright he was taking Saudi money because he was 51 and the number was too big to turn down. For a while it worked. He even became the oldest major champion in history at Kiowa Island. But LIV was never built on golf. It was built on Saudi capital, and that capital had an expiration date. In early 2026, the Public Investment Fund told LIV it was pulling its backing after the 2026 season, after putting in more than $5 billion since the league launched. Leadership said the season would go on at full speed. Insiders started using the word bankruptcy instead. For most LIV players, that's a bad headline. For Mickelson, it's the floor giving out. Golf writer Alan Shipnuck put it plainly. If LIV goes under, Mickelson becomes a man without a country. His old PGA Tour exemption expired years ago. The USGA didn't invite him back to the Open. His Masters and PGA lifetime exemptions are worth nothing if there's no tour to build a season around. And one golf analyst didn't even soften it. He said flatly that Mickelson would never again appear in any official capacity with the PGA Tour. That wasn't a hot take, that was the room's consensus. He didn't get banned from anywhere, he just ran out of doors that were still open. Here's the part that actually stings. Mickelson didn't even get the dignity of managing his own collapse. He was out on broadcasts defending LIV's stability, while the league's own leadership hadn't bothered to loop him in on the funding pullout. He learned about the biggest threat to his career the same way the public did, from headlines. A man who built an entire identity on reading situations, calculating odds, and controlling outcomes through sheer nerve was left with zero information and zero say, defending a sinking ship he didn't know was sinking. And that's the real irony sitting underneath all 3 collapses. Mickelson's whole career ran on risk. Phil the Thrill wasn't a nickname, it was a philosophy. Go for the shot nobody else would attempt. Bet on yourself when the math says don't. That instinct made him beloved for 30 years. In 2022, he ran that same instinct on the biggest bet of his life, and this time the house had more information than he did. The stakes weren't strokes or dollars, they were his reputation. And reputation doesn't come back at par. This is what happens when you assume a legacy is sturdy enough to absorb anything you throw at it. Titles don't erode all at once. They erode door by door, invitation by invitation, until you look up one day and realize the version of you that always had options doesn't anymore. Mickelson still has his lifetime exemptions. He still has fans who remember exactly who he was. But exemptions aren't a career. and memory isn't momentum. At 55, the runway for a redemption arc is short, and it's getting shorter every month LIV stays in freefall. So, is this the setup for one last Phil Mickelson comeback? Or is this actually how the story ends? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want more stories on what's really happening behind the headlines in pro golf, subscribe.